Okay. Okay, I thought the
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the third of 5 legislative conferences that we're running in this session. I'd like to go ahead and start, if we can, if you stand, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you for doing that for me. I want to thank Representative Segrist and Senator Dawson for being with us this morning. Representative Turek is not here, and Representative Winchell texted me last night and said he was unable to make it this morning. He has a family attendant. I want to thank our sponsors once again, Google and Advanced Southwest Iowa Corporation, for helping to make all of this possible and providing refreshments this morning. And thank the school district for offering their building to us. And thank you all for being here, participating in this legislative coffee and the democratic process, which I think is so great. There are question cards up here. If you have a question, feel free to just come on up at any time. You can hand the card to me. And we may not get to all of the questions. The last two we did, so I don't roll. But if we don't get to all of the questions, Representative Segrist and Senator Dawson, I can speak for them. They're all willing to take your calls, your emails, so reach out to them if there's something that you need. We will go ahead and start with just give you guys a couple of minutes if there's anything you'd like to update on or things that you've been working on. We're approaching the second funnel deadline, so there's a lot of activity in the Capitol, but we'll start there before we get to the questions. Representative Segrist, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, the second funnel deadline is next Friday. As we've discussed before, the funnel winnows the bills down to a manageable number. We started out this year with way too many, about 2,500 bill proposals, still have way too many moving forward. But by next Friday, a bill must be, in order for it to remain alive, with the exceptions of appropriations, spending bills, and tax bills, must be passed by one house, one chamber, and out of committee in the other chamber to be still eligible. So next Friday, a bunch of bills will fall by the wayside, and some of them good riddance too, but that's just the way the system works. It was a busy week in the House, or 2 weeks since we've been here. Again, alluding to what I just said, the House passed over 100 pieces of legislation in the last 2 weeks. Some of it good, some of it less good. Much of it may very well die in the Senate for a variety of reasons, and that's the way the two-chamber system works. A couple of things that were important just on Thursday. On Wednesday, we had a report. We gave the University of Iowa $1 million to study our high cancer rates and also some of the causes. And we know most of those, but we wanted to get that research done, so the College of Public Health came and presented, and no surprise, the two biggest factors for the cancer growth in Iowa are cigarette smoking and radon. On Thursday, despite some concerns about it, we passed legislation in the House that any new single or two-family residences must be built with radon mitigation systems. That is a mandate. I don't generally love mandates, but that is absolutely the right thing to do. So hopefully we'll move ahead with that. I think that's a significant piece of legislation in terms of the cancer issue. The other cancer issue, which I'm not sure what will happen, but I am willing to support, would be to raise the cigarette tax, because there's a direct correlation between smoking and our out of control Medicaid costs. I'm not sure that's going to pass. The governor recommended, but that would be something that I would also be supporting to help us in our fight against cancer. Two other quick ones, three quick ones. Josh isn't here, Representative Turek, but in a bill we passed, he got his right, I think it's right to work bill incorporated into another piece having to do with welfare. And so that was a very important piece of legislation. Remove some income caps and allow people to have work with dignity, I think is what it's called. So I know he'd love to talk about it, but he's not here. So that was something he'd worked very hard on, and a very good piece of legislation. Last two things would be, we also passed some legislation as it relates to hospitals, and in particular, forbidding insurance companies from making you get pre-approval for cancer screenings, which I think is also a good thing. You should be able to get that without having to go through the rigmarole, which I went through some of that last year when I was ill. Then lastly, and I still have blood on my body from passing the four-year degree for community colleges. It was quite a battle in the House. We did get it done. It faces, not because of Senator Dawson, but it'll face a difficult future in the Senate because the private universities, private colleges think it's Armageddon and everything's going to end, and they are so wrong and so full of it. But we did pass it in the House, very narrow, and we can talk about that if you want. That's a big piece of legislation for Southwest Iowa, and I would love to see get to the governor's desk.
Good morning, everyone. Dan Dawson, Senate District 10 here. Just kind of echoing off what Brent said. As we approach the second funnel here, I mean, the process works, right? Where we're starting to whittle bills down, things like that. I just kind of look at the overall size of the crowd. When we first did this, I don't know, 4 weeks ago, and like all the issues where we tell everyone, like, hey, it's a process, we'll work through it and everything. And then as those issues, we all know fall off there, the crowd diminishes because the process works. So we have second funnel coming up next week here. There's still some outstanding issues out there that I know we talked about before. I'd be highly skeptical if the majority of those pass through, but we'll work through that as well. Aside from the big things, I'll start with something a little unique here to what Brent said. I'm sure questions will come in on some of the more regular topics, but this is when we start to move. We have the REC, and now we start to move through tax bills and appropriations bills. So Ways and Means kind of picked up some work last week here while we let the other policy committees do the work ahead of time. One of the things we started to tackle this week, and it's not just an issue in Iowa, it's all across the United States, is predictive markets. And it's pretty important for our area around here for the fact that we have 3 casinos in our town, and about a third of state infrastructure revenue comes from western Iowa, at least as of a year ago. I haven't seen the most recent numbers here, so Sioux City included as well too. Predictive markets, what they are at their core is like if you're a farmer, right, or if you're a rancher, you might, they're a legal exchange where you might buy a call to offset, like you're gonna hedge your bets, right? Like if you have a cattle operation and you use a predictive market to essentially minimize your losses or your gains there, just because you're raising an animal for 2 years and you know where the market's gonna be at when you stop, right? That's all normal stuff. But we have some overseas operators who started to manipulate the otherwise legal and thoughtful CFTC platform, and they are essentially offering a contract, if you will, on the outcome of sporting events. You see it maybe the last few years, outcome on elections, things along those lines, right? Well, the issue becomes that the CFTC regulates that industry, and there's a legal argument out there that the cow sheep, poly markets, things like that, where they are trying to say the states have no ability to regulate us, and they're essentially, the point is, offering a product that is very similar to what we have entered into a social contract here in the state through our casino industry. So when you offer a product like this that 19-year-old, 20-year-old can get on one of these and make a contract on if the Packers or the Bears win, and there is very few, if any, that we can tell treatment programs for these young individuals out there. How these people at a casino, they would have a ban, you have problem gambling, things along those infrastructures. Nothing that exists. And we had a subcommittee this week, and we asked the people of Poly Marcus as well as Calshi, how many people in Iowa actually enter into one of these contracts? Couldn't provide information. How many people actually place a sports wagering contract? Couldn't provide information. How many people out there are in Iowa being treated? Couldn't provide that information. So they're offering a platform that basically usurps our tax structure here in the state of Iowa and all the other states out there as well too. And they, they hide behind the shroud of CFTC regulation, and two, they pose potentially a very large public health risk out there. So Ways and Means this week, one of the things I'm actually give our leader a lot of kudos on. A lot of states have tried to basically do cease and desist or declarations in court to say this is an illegal market. In Iowa, we took a different track about a month ago. We've seen 2 other states actually mimic us what we do, where if these are illegal products, we're going to take a tax track and actually try to make sure there's some balance in the system there a little bit. So it's a small little thing, but it's interesting. Like Iowa is trying to pave some legal ground here on this and take a different track on how to deal with these markets that are otherwise undermining, at the very least, undermining the casino industry. 2, posing a public health risk by offering essentially a way for minors to gamble with no verification at all here. So kind of a neat little thing we're doing here this week. I know there's a lot of the bigger topics out there, but venture Saturday morning trivia. So
Let me, Dan mentioned one thing quickly. The REC, the Revenue Estimating Conference, they met on Wednesday or Thursday, I think. Back in 1992, we set the system up where you have this 3-person group, governor appoints one, the legislature appoints one, and those 2 appoint another, who look at all the fact figures and everything, and then come to us in December. They meet like 4 times a year and say, here's our projections for the next year, and by law, we're bound to spend, we can spend up to 99% of whatever that figure is. We can go lower, we can't go higher. And then they meet again in March and kind of see if what they said in December still rings true, which they did last week. And then if by any chance they say, hey, the economy's even better, you don't get to spend that money. But if it goes lower, then you have to redo the budget, because the governor submitted the budget off that figure in December. So it went down slightly from what it was projected in November, like, I don't know, 0.2% or something like that. A small decrease in anticipated revenue, mostly because of the farm economy. But while there were warning signs there, and we won't get into the whole death spiral and everything else, if there's a question, I'll get into all that about what the budget looks like. But the farm economy has stabilized, and actually, interestingly, gambling revenues are up, which goes into our infrastructure fund. But it looks like everything has kind of settled down, and so we've got our figure now. And the point of all that was to say, next week, appropriations will meet finally. Ways and Means is going to start meeting, because those tax bills, those spending bills, we don't meet the first part of the year because we're waiting for that final budget figure and all these other things. So Dan's about to get busier. I serve on Ways and Means. I'm about to get busier because those committees really ramp up the last 6 to 7 weeks of the session. So we have the number now, and it's, I don't remember what it is, but the budget will end up being, I think, about $9.5 billion when it's all said and done. But we'll really start to work next week on the budget and tax.
Thanks for that. I was going to ask to provide a quick summary of the REC, since you mentioned it, Senator Dawson. We have a couple of questions here on House File 2338. Mike asks about your support or not for the bill which would prevent high school students from discussing gender identity and sexual orientation.
If that is the bill, I believe, that says they would be not allowed to do that between grades 7 and 12, I'm a no. I've fought to keep the bill from coming to the floor. I don't think it's necessary. Current law, and I did support this, said that and kindergarten through 6th grade, we ought not to be talking about that all the time, and I think that's perfectly, I thought that was okay. I don't think we need to have that confusion, even though it does affect some children. But once you hit 7th grade, I think that's something that comes up, or if you're a sophomore, junior in high school. So the answer to the question is, it hasn't moved, I'm a no.
I guess I'm not familiar with that. Let's looking at here the tracking. That never made it out of subcommittee in the Senate, and so it died at the first funnel. I don't sit on education. I don't have a whole lot to offer. I guess on that bill, I'm not knowledgeable there, but it's not a live round in the Senate. It looks like it died way back in the first funnel.
And by the way, so I just got a couple of emails on that, and one of them I responded to. It's like, why are you for this? Have you pardoned? I'm like, I don't know where you're getting your information. I'm a no, I've been a no. So you should go tell the people you're talking to that they should stop spreading rumors. Nobody is talking about that issue. Nobody, and they're saying I'm a no, which pisses me off, frankly. And I got an email, I got a text to my daughter in Guatemala saying, tell Representative Seeger that his vote is wrong, and I'm a no. I mean, that's some of the crap we put up with. I don't know what group, I know what group I'm going to talk to Monday when I get to the Capitol. But, you know, at least ask me, because I'm a no.
I'm sure we could probably do we could probably do an entire legislative coffee on the stuff.
Yeah, no,
Sort of a related bill, House File 2557 on conversion therapy.
Yeah, I'll answer it. I'm sure that, to me, and maybe I'm wrong on this, the Senate can clean it up, it wasn't a conversion therapy bill for me. Conversion therapy, I don't think is something we should be doing. But the Senate file actually, the way it was explained, and the way I believe it does, is it clarifies that a parent would have the right to raise their child the way they see fit. Because there have been a couple of cases where they have faced accusations of child abuse because they were telling their child, you know, they want to raise them according to their biological sex. And so that's the way the bill was presented, and I believe that, I did vote for that, but I think that that's okay. I didn't see it as a conversion therapy bill. If I misunderstood that when I asked questions, then I hope the Senate cleans that up, because I don't think conversion therapy is a good thing, but I think a parent, if you know, their 7-year-old kid says, I want to dress as a girl or a boy, whatever it may be, I mean, I think parents have the opportunity to try to guide their kid and not be charged with child abuse. So that's the way I saw the bill. If I'm wrong, then hopefully the Senate will make that clarification back.
Yeah, so this just came over from the House, and I think there's a subcommittee on it. Yeah, there was one on Thursday. So it's going to go to Judiciary Committee, which I do sit on the Senate. And it's one of those issues that I haven't really heard about all session, and all of a sudden, the last 2-3 days, a bunch of emails start coming in on it. To Brent's point, I think we have to evaluate in the committee, because my understanding was exactly as Brent said, that parents have the ability to actually have conversations with their children without being accused of child abuse. Okay? That seems okay with me. The tenor of all these emails seem to be something exactly opposite. I don't sit on the subcommittee, but I sit and have some conversations this next week as to the dialogue of the emails coming in versus the text of the bill. Do these things is it totally different, or I don't know what, but I mean, to Brent's point, I would 100% support. Like, a parent's got to be able to be a parent, and they can't be accused of, you know, child endangerment because of conversations inside the household. So if that's the case, I would support the bill. If all the other emails come in saying does something different, we'll have to evaluate it and see if there's a time limit. So.
The question on that bill came from Cindy, I think is the name, and there's another question on House File, from Cindy on House File 2579. The question is, do you think we need this bill? If so, does that mean that you have no faith in judges to obey the laws that covers disorderly conduct?
What was the number?
2579.
I just want to make sure.
Says the bill.
No, I'm pretty sure I know what it is.
Okay.
Okay, that, to the best of my knowledge, is what I call a 5 o'clock news bill. It would raise penalty for disruption of worship services to a felony, which I think is dumb. I won't support that bill. It's a direct response. When I say a 5 o'clock news bill, it's a direct response to the idiots who did disrupt church service in Minneapolis, including Don Lemon, totally out of line. You can protest all you want. You do it outside of the chamber. You do it outside of the church. You can march, you can yell, you can scream, but you don't go into a church service according to the First Amendment and scare little kids by running around yelling. Do it outside the church. I have no problem with that, but I think this is an overreaction to that. It comes to mind like 20 years ago, some of you remember that there's a group of idiots out of Kansas that would come and pick it outside of churches, saying if you're gay, you're going to hell and everything else, when they were probably the ones that end up there. But they were outside the church. That's how you do that. What they did in Minneapolis to me is unacceptable. Do it outside of the church. But I'm not going to vote to make it a felony, because we already have laws for that. So I think that bill's over the top. I won't support it. On the other hand, if you think what they did in Minneapolis is right, we disagree. Because you do it outside the church, you don't go into a mass or a synagogue or anything else to do that. So if the bill moves, and it's on Ways and Means, and I'm on Ways and Means, which is a stupid place for it to be anyway, I'll be a no.
How do you feel about it?
I wasn't this is that, sorry, this is the first I've heard of it. This is a single bill in the House, and it just looks like it got filed.
It's Carter.
Yeah, as I said before here, House individual bills, I let the House speak to their internal affairs, and then if it comes over to the Senate, discussion there. But that's the first I just read through here.
It was
That's
Wednesday.
So.
I mean, if we didn't have any laws, then I'd want to look at it. But we have laws that take care of that stuff, and to make it a felony is over the top.
Cindy, does that answer your question for you? Okay. Let's move on to something Senator Dawson would like to talk about, I think.
Oh,
Or maybe not.
We have a couple of questions about property taxes. Just a general question from Don on, helping landlords to keep rents down for tenants that are already having problems. And then another question from Diane, specifically, I think on the Senate property tax bill. What are your thoughts on Senator Dawson's property tax bill and what it will do to rent, since it will increase taxes on rental homes by 124%, from 44% valuation to 100% valuation, question mark?
So that is misinformation. And I'm going to apologize to everyone in the room here, because I know when I start talking property taxes, happy eyes will glaze, right? But to answer the question here,
This would be a good time for me to refill my coffee.
So what we are trying to do is, and one more disclaimer, if I get a little bit more excited, this is nothing to the nature of the question. So please do not misunderstand that or anything, right? But it's going to go more towards me dealing with the lobby here the last 2 months, and frankly the last 18 months. Because it's really frustrating from the standpoint that whenever you poll, and I'll start by saying this. To begin here, Senate Republicans have a bill, House Republicans have a bill, House Democrats have a bill, Governor has a bill. Property taxes are likely the #1 issue here that are on minds of voters here for Iowa voters, right? If not #1, it's got to be top 2 or 3. But you have a army of people who operate in the second floor of the Iowa Capitol and in the basement, who the gravity of that building is to do nothing. And so, therefore, when Iowans out there demand reform and relief, and you have a building saying do the opposite, it excites a little bit more passion out of me. So, right now, and first of all, what the Senate has done is we have tried to provide a vision. You know, you can't just come in and say, well, I want to tweak this rollback here, I want to do this credit here, and leave a system broken in place. Iowa has the 10th highest property taxes in the United States, consistently year over year. Our commercial industrial is between 4th and 6th highest. It floats. Being in a border state, that is a tremendous disadvantage. Tremendous disadvantage, right? When we have site selectors, we're trying to bring people over here. Your top 3 things people are going to look at is labor, power, taxes, right? Top 3 things right there. So the vision that we've tried to provide to rebuild this whole system is that either you have a property you own for your family, that you live and work, retire, have grandkids in, and you have a piece of property that you own for income. Now, I will say this, I have my house, and I have a rental house, right? 2 different things. My rental house, when we bought it, you start to depreciate it right away. When I need a new roof, I have business expense it. When I need new carpet, I have business expense it. When I need a new stove, I have business expense it, right? If you are a family here in the state and you buy your first home, you don't get to start to depreciate that every year. If you need a new roof, you're either going to go get a HELOC or you're going to save up enough money and pay for that new roof. You don't get a business expense that. If you have a stove, you have to replace in your house. You don't get a business expense that, right? All that being said, the way the current property tax system works right now for rentals is that they pay the same property tax rate as a homestead here. And I think it's fundamentally wrong that a corporation or a business gets a better tax advantage in the state of Iowa than someone's family home. And you can disagree with me, but that's the principle of the property tax bill. To drive relief to families, fix the commercial industrial, provide broad-based relief to farmers, and basically fill the bucket up, right? Because whether it be, House, Senate, Governor, or even House Democrat bill, everyone's talking about doing some type of revenue limitation. But if you're carving out your taxable value underneath that, you're not really doing anything. I think you've all heard me talk here before a few weeks ago, like Google, when it comes off a 20-year TIF. We have the largest data center here in the United States. There's no reason Council Bluffs should have one of the higher consolidated property tax rates here in the state. When value comes on, rates should come down. Because when we do these projects, we're all told, hey, this is going to be good, it's going to be property tax relief. But we never get it in the end, right? So what the Senate bill tries to do is focus on those 2 things. But it's not just, this is where I think it's very disingenuous for the associations to be talking about it. So what we're trying to do is that if you have a homestead, your house for your family, the 50% taxable discount. Everyone else, all the other properties, eventually goes up to 100%, right? And then as valuation comes in above 2% assessment growth, your rates get bought down, right? That's how you fill the bucket up. I mean, it's a very simple tax philosophy. You broaden the base and lower the rates. But the problem is, people have been doing a tremendous job over the last 20 years of not broadening the base. They get their own carve-outs all the time, and they hop onto something else. And then, lo and behold, before you know it, we've got high rates, no base to speak of, and we're trying to stop that and rebuild from the start. So, specifically to the misinformation that's been put out there by associations of going up 120%, right? That ignores 2 other critical pieces to the bill. As we dump all this valuation into the system, on a revenue restrictor, your rate is getting bought down. It's not like we're leaving Council, like we say Council Bluffs, right? Consolidated rate of, I'd say $18. It's not like Council Bluffs rate would be staying at $18 and we just raise your taxable value. As we throw taxable value on, the rate is getting bought down to, whatever it would be, right? That's what we're trying to work for there. That's the fundamental principle, is filling the bucket and buying down the rate. So it's a promise, right? We have these new businesses come in, we have all this valuation. We should see some type of relief in our system as opposed to keeping the rates up there. Secondly, whether it be this governor's bill or the Senate bill, we also provide education property tax relief as well too. I mean, we have different ways of going about it, but all the bills to some extent are trying to basically repurpose property tax credits to buy down the school portion there. So if you have me, as opposed to anyone else, on the rental house that I have, yes, the taxable value will go up, but my consolidated rate is coming down dramatically, which that has not been spoken about in this dialogue. And then third, there's also relief coming into that property by buying down the school portion. But we have a series of, and I'm getting, it's nothing in here wise, right? But just, I see the association newsletters. I think they're absolutely disingenuous because they don't educate their members. And, and I guess one of the more frustrating things is when we talk about, the apartments there and things along those lines. In our subcommittee we had 2 weeks ago, I've done a lot of data polls on things. And there was a deal struck in 2013, and I see a few long-term elected officials in here who remember that one. And that's where they gave all the multi-res the same deal I was just talking about at the beginning with, and said you get to pay the same rate as a family home out there. And the promise to that legislature at that time was, hey, this is going to be rent relief for everyone. I pulled out we had U.S. Census Bureau data, right? If you look at Iowa and every surrounding state over 10 years, when the taxable value of these units went from 86% down to current, 46% that 10-year window, taxable value was cut in almost half. Rents went up the same as every one of our surrounding states. That's a policy crime out there, right? So we know what's been done in the past. Cutting out taxable value doesn't work. These credits out there don't work, and that's one of the things as well too I'll talk about in a minute, because there is another part to this question here. But the reality is that if we're going to fix this broken system, we're going to have to go down to the bare bones here on this one. Because, the legislature took a shot in 2013 at it. The relief was very minimal and was short-lived. We dealt with it in 2019. We tried to do more transparency. That hasn't had a whole lot of fruition. We came back in 21 on the mental health levy and tried to buy that portion down as well too. Half the counties out there ended up raising the levy. The difference that we bought it down, they pocketed the money. And then in 23 we started to finally make some good headway here as well too. So the follow-up to this is that in this week we started to move some product here in the Senate. And one of the things we have tried to focus on, which we amended in committee, is how do we deliver relief to some of those people on the very, lowest end income out there, right? So we did 2 sizable things. One is that we are increasing disabled and elderly credit from $1,000 to $1,500, which hasn't been moved in a series of years there, to help those individuals who are renting on lower income and upping that tax credit there as well. Additionally, what we did too is for our manufactured mobile areas out there, a lot of people are on fixed income as well too. We are eliminating the square footage tax on those things, which is something where they pay their rent to the park and then they also have to go write another check out to the county as well too. Finally, what we are doing for our elderly, and I'll talk about that later on. It's probably off topic a little bit, but I'll just come back here to I think the beginning of the question, right? The beginning question is, what are we doing? Well, what we're doing is we're rebuilding the system. And it's a 3-pronged approach. Adding valuation in, driving down the rates, and adding school relief there inside. And anyone, association, that I just saw 3 this week and said, oh, they're going to raise it, whatever the percentage was there. It's just disingenuous. It's disingenuous. And those people basically who put out that information either aren't doing their homework or would rather have this rigged system that we do right now. And it's absolutely rigged. Because I will finish how I started off. There is no reason a corporation or business in this state on a family home should have a better tax advantage than a family who's trying to buy it and pay it off. Full stop.
I'm afraid to say anything. No, I'm just kidding. What the senator has, very briefly, this is an extraordinarily complicated thing. The House and Governor's bill are not nearly as expansive as what the Senate bill does, trying to totally reform the system. So it's going to be a lot of talk and a lot of discussions that have already been going on. So it's going to be extremely, not extremely difficult, but it's going to be difficult to get to the final version, but that's what we're working towards. And we need to make some fundamental changes if we can get the vote together. The problem with all this is you eventually got to get 51, 26, and then the governor's signature. So kudos to the Senator Dawson for all the work he's done on it. And we got a ways to go, but we're working towards it.
Thank you for that explanation. I have spent a little bit of time trying to understand the different bills, and I think it's a little bit like whack-a-mole. You plug a leak over here, and then a new one springs over there, and the burden has to shift somewhere. Just to get back to the original question, maybe is there any conversations happening maybe outside of property tax discussions on rent relief or other ways to provide relief to the increasing rents?
Yeah, I guess I'm not really aware. I mean, in a sense, I mean, we're trying to take a holistic look, right? That's why we rolled in those two components in this last week in the bill on this disabled and the elderly low-income tax credit, as well as the modular home square footage tax out there. I'm not sure if there's anything else out there really along those lines, but I don't know a better time to have those discussions when we're talking about rebuilding the entire system as well, too. So, and I'm just going to take just a little bit more time here, but these are important topics. I want to say one more thing coming back to that, right? It always amazes me to some extent when, and I'll go back to that stat I talked about earlier on, right? You know, Iowa in a 10-year period, rents went up 33%, I believe. Nebraska was about a point behind us, and some other state, like 31, 32. I look at our whole surrounding there, right? Not surprisingly, Illinois went up 40%, blah, blah, blah. You know, and when the lobby comes in, like, oh my God, and I mean, these are good conversations to have, but sometimes they escape reality. You know, like, and good people, they're like, well, we're, you know, concerned that by doing the structural changes there, that it might disincentivize out-of-state capital from coming in and making investments. Well, heck, folks, that's part of the problem why housing prices are getting driven up so much when you have all this out-of-state capital coming in from all over there. You know, when people come to the subcommittee and say, hey, you know, we own 120 houses, or, you know, and like, you know, this low birthday or something like that. You know, I'm not sure if that's necessarily healthy. It's a good public discussion to have where we have some businesses in areas. And that's not knocking, you're doing everything legal. But when you give people a better tax advantage of the business to own a rental than you do a home, and you have people buying up 100 and 200 houses in some of these areas, that's kind of concerning a little bit. Like, we really do need to take a solid look at what we're doing here in the state. And some of these individuals too, not go back on my tip rant, but like, I give the example of how you disexpense stuff for a house and how you can't do for your family home. Well, a lot of these units, they're already pulling down federal credits when they build into place. They're already pulling down state credits. They're already, you know, getting some type of tip deal as well too, which is taking your property tax dollars and showing the system to basically, I'm not saying anything's are illegal and ethical, but it's like, can we at least have an honest conversation about your entire tax scheme and what you're doing versus the average family out there? Because none of that is fighting just to make the payments every day. All right, now I'm done, so.
Need to hold a property tax week for Senator Dawson. Okay, this next question from Holly on Senate File 2822, a VA incentive program. Just general question about what you know about the bill, and if anyone at the county level, veteran service offices were consulted on the language of the bill.
Yeah, this is I'll start off with this one here. Being a veteran, It always pains me when inside the veteran community, we have disagreement, right? Which oftentimes is more times than not, but I guess that's why we're all to some extent tight-knit personalities out there. So this is a bill proposed by the governor at the beginning of session, and I know we have some disagreements on statistics out there, but the fundamental principle of the bill, and this is something we've been dealing for my entirety up there on county VSOs and how do we deliver a better service to our veterans out there, right? Some county veteran service organizations do a tremendous job and some just don't. And so what the governor tried to do is do a proposed modernization bill for these county VSOs, because some statistics provided was that our per capita of veterans versus the dollars that we're pulling down is not in balance with some other states, right? And so that's the, whatever the politics are, you can't knock the impetus of that bill for that, of trying to make sure that we're providing a better quality service, and so if there are benefits out there, our veterans are deserving of, that they're actually getting quality service and collecting the things that they have earned, right? And so that's the impetus of the bill. And there's a lot of good things inside of the bill too, right? It's modernizing all the IT systems and getting everyone on a single platform. Not new or groundbreaking, some other states have done that. Which that was a discussion point as well too, is what the bill moved for Veterans Affairs as well as appropriations, and then through floor-wise and everything. The most contentious thing in that bill, I would say, one of the more things that's a hot topic in there is basically incentivizing county VSOs that right now every county gets essentially $10,000 a year for training the officers to then provide, make those contacts and provide benefits. The bill basically does incentive where you basically cast Iowa into a third. The counties in the bottom third will get $5,000 a year. The counties in the middle third keep the same $10,000. The counties that are performing on the higher end get $15,000, right? Really unique, I'm not sure it's because we're next to Offutt or what, we don't have those stats there, but like Mills, Fremont, and Potawatomi are all in the top third. So kudos to our VSOs around here for actually doing that. A lot of areas in the state, they're not, right? And so that's what the bill is designed to do, that portion of the bill, which is collecting the most scrutiny within the veterans communities. County VSOs are not in support of the bill. American Legion not in support of the bill. Veterans of Foreign War are in support of the bill. The disabled veteran, gosh, I'm brain blank here now, that group's in favor of it. So it's really kind of unfortunate you have all our veteran groups split on the bill, right? There are some out there like we need this because the service provided is not well, and then some out there, actually they have ballot issues as well too. But I think the discussion point inside as we were moving those bills through was that whether people agree or disagree with parts of the bill, it was pretty much a bipartisan agreement that we need to do better than what's currently being provided out there right now. So I think the bill's going over to the House. I think the question was VSOs consulted? I can't tell you initially how that was there, but I can tell you like it went through 2 subcommittees and 2 committees on full floor in the Senate, and there was a lot of input from both sides there. As well as there actually were some county VSOs who were reaching out. I mean, I think the Iowa ISAC maybe wasn't supportive of it, but I can think of at least 4 counties that reached out on emails wise to our Veterans Affairs Committee, so this absolutely needs to be done. We see what some of our peers are doing out there in the county community. We know that better can be done. So.
I don't have much to add to that, obviously, because Dan explained it really well, but it's an example of what we talk about here sometimes. I'm not a veteran. I don't serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee. I focus on other things, and so as this moves through, I'll be talking to people like Senator Dawson to get their opinion on what the best way forward is. I always hesitate, sometimes the governor, good for her to try to bring this issue to the forefront, saying we need to do more, but I want to make sure that doesn't punish or take away from our people on our side of the state because some other counties aren't doing as good a job. So I think we'll probably end up getting something done. Whatever it is, it remains to be seen, and I'll be talking to those people that are deeply involved in it and trying to make sure we make the right decision that's good for Potawatomi County.
This question is from Eric on increasing the Iowa minimum wage. Iowa is an economic island surrounded by neighboring states where the minimum wage is significantly higher and continues to increase. Border communities like Council Bluffs and Carter Lake see the effects of this gap every day as many people get in their cars each morning and commute into Nebraska to earn a higher wage. Iowa's minimum wage has been $7.25 for 18 years. House File 283, which was proposed in this session to address increasing Iowa's minimum wage, did not receive a subcommittee hearing. And Senate File 2045 has also stalled. The question is, given the growing wage gap between Iowa and neighboring states, the direct impact on workers and border community economics like ours, why were these bills not assigned to subcommittees for discussion, and do you support addressing this issue in a future session?
Yeah.
Well, I can't answer why they weren't assigned to subcommittee, because I don't know. Would I support a minimum wage increase? Sure, I would. The fact of the matter is, I mean, I get the issue, but nobody's making, generally speaking, nobody's making minimum wage. And so I would be okay if we increased the minimum wage. One of the things we're doing this year, we did a couple of years ago, is to put additional money into para-educators in the state of Iowa, because those are people working with our kids, and people working at McDonald's were making more money. Because at McDonald's now, you make $15 an hour, what have you. So the answer to the question is, I don't know why I didn't move out of committee. I would support an increase in the minimum wage. I'm not sure how big of an issue it is in a city like ours, because to get the employment, get the people to employ, you have to pay a higher wage in a rural community.
Yeah, I agree. That's what he said as well to you. I was trying to do a search for it. I must have deferred the wrong bill number, so I'm not sure which committee it went to there. I would imagine probably workforce would have sent us to all those bills go to. Couldn't tell you why. But I'd be supportive of it, yeah. Same time too, it's like, I just kind of, the counter policy question is, what's the number, right? I remember when we first elected here some years ago, it was $15 was the number, right? For national, you like all discussion there on that. But the reality, I think, unless you're a waitress or something along those lines, I'm not sure anyone is really making $7.25 in the metro area anymore. That's a discussion from a decade ago, right? So what the number is, I guess I just don't know. Whenever we talk about minimum wage, it's like the first thing I would always look at is what are our surrounding states doing, right? If you set it at a number that puts us at a disadvantage, like Greg said, I mean, just because it's $7.25 here. I'm not aware of any business in Bluffs or Carter Lake that would be doing that when it's a tight labor market anyways, and they can literally drive 10 minutes over to find a different job. It's always something that, is worthy of a discussion, but I guess the question would be, what's the number? What does, that number look like benefits-wise? And looking at the other side too, as Brent mentioned, rural Iowa, no surprise, we have a different pay and labor market here in this metro area, as well as Des Moines, as well as the Quad Cities, than you might find up in Sioux County, Iowa, or Bryan County, or something along those lines there.
The only thing I'd add is, Danberg, the good point, what's the point, what's the number? Because there may be people here think, if I got it, that'd be $20 an hour. They do that in California, and they've lost a ton of jobs, and places have closed down because that's not even in California, that wasn't a realistic way to go. So we got to figure out what the number is, but it should go up. I don't have any problem with that, but I'm not sure what that number is.
Eric, did you have a follow-up or?
Can I do a follow-up?
Sure.
I'm sorry. In the small towns, a lot of people are making $10 an hour. I know my daughter here in town is making $10 an hour. That's not a livable wage at all. So,
I didn't claim it to be a livable wage, I'm just
well,
saying.
that's the point, is we need to have livable wages.
I understand that what the issue, a livable wage is what? With $20 a livable wage, you will lose jobs and lose things, lose probably some businesses. I understand what you're saying, I think it needs to go up.
Population is going to decline, raise the minimum wage.
The next question is from Christie on House File 2406 regarding tobacco. I believe this is a tobacco sales tax. Hardworking Iowans paying for other people's choice to smoke and addiction to nicotine. Raising the tax by anything less than $1.50 a pack will not show the behavior change. What are your beliefs or considerations on this to be used as a free tax, not really a sin tax?
Well, I said it already, I view it as a use tax, I am in favor of raising it, I don't agree that anything less than $1.50 won't change the character or the trajectory of who smokes. I think anything we do, you look at all the studies, every time you raise tobacco tax, the amount of people smoking goes down, so I don't agree that it's got to be $1.50 or won't make any changes, because I think anything we do will make a change. So I'm supportive of that. The governor has recommended 65%. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I'd probably be comfortable higher. But it's a matter of what we might be able to get passed. I think it addresses specifically the cancer rates, and I think we need to do it. And we're having discussions about it right now. Whether or not we get it done, I don't know. But I'd be supportive of 65% or higher, 65 cents or higher.
Chris, what was the last line of that question again?
Regarding your beliefs or considerations, this to be use-free tax, not really a sin tax. I'm not sure that if I'm reading that correctly.
Okay, I'm just trying the use first thing. So here on the Senate side, there was a bill, Rick mentioned the governor had I think it's still alive around the House. The Senate went through Human Services Committee, where essentially trying to, through raising that tax, as well as I think a few others as well. I don't send Human Services, but I recall there. Because I was keeping an eye on that one a little bit, if it was going to come over to Ways and Means, and it never did. But the crux of that was raising the tobacco tax to then basically plug a hole, if you will, inside the Medicaid portion, right? And that bill failed bipartisan inside the Senate Human Services Committee. So I think, I can't tell you if it was the number reason why it failed or just the topic in general, but I know that it was bipartisan failing that bill and actually died in committee, which we don't see too often up there. So, talking about the tobacco tax. You know, this is always a hard policy thing because, I know, that because some people, they want to raise it to basically end the behavior, right? And that's a policy position out there. But then there's other people out there who want to raise it to support, you know, medical infrastructure, right, as well too. That shows that if you raise it to a certain extent, you are going to change behavior and you're going to cut back usage. So even when both parties, you know, agree to raising it, it's like, well, what's the policy outcome in the end, right? If you're going to try to plug a Medicaid hole in a budget and you're plugging it through a mechanism that's going to diminish usage, then that's not really a long-term solution on the budget-wise as well, too. And that's where a lot of kind of discussion of failures occur a lot of the time there. So because that bill failed inside Human Services, it's essentially not a conversation inside the Senate this year. What is still a conversation is we have another bill out there, and that is on vapes as well as some of these other pouches out there as well too. And I think that's something that we need to hopefully make some movement on here at the end of the year. Right now, there's a tax on tobacco, but very similar products. And I know there's discussion out there if these are harm reduction products or not, or if it's basically an alternative. whatever people's viewpoint is on those, the reality is you go out and buy a pack of cigarettes, you're paying tobacco tax. You're going out and buying a vape, you're paying just the regular sales tax, right? My viewpoint is there has to be parity in that spectrum. You can't have such a back to house you own for your family and back to house you own for a rental. You can't have such a massive disparity on packed cigarettes. People just go out and find a cheaper alternative on tax-wise there that, quite frankly, probably has the same health aspects at the end. So what I would like to see us hopefully make moving on, if not accomplished by the end of the session, is what does exist out there, and that is trying to bring some parity with these vapes and pouches back up to the tobacco side, which would bring additional monies into Medicaid. But until we can have a larger consensus, not even with both parties within a chamber as to how we're going to deal with that, it doesn't mean we should ignore these other things happening as well.
So Chris, you did have a question on the crate, house style 2133 and the companion 2192. I'm not familiar with those. Is it a similar, is it a?
Yeah, it's similar, just to piggyback off what Dan said, I hadn't thought about the vape part. Yeah, we absolutely need to do that. That is an inequality and equity, I guess, between similar products, so I think we need to do that. And as a result, the tobacco tax may yet still be aligned in terms of that being the same genre, that we might continue to do that, but we need to do something with vaping. Kratom is a natural substance that you see in all the smoke shops and so on. They have since then, it's created a synthetic kratom, which causes some significant potential problems. So the bill that is there would regulate, the bill would regulate and outlaw synthetic kratom, which is, it doesn't have THC like marijuana or whatever, and it's a natural substance, but when they synthesize it, it has some definite health effects. There have been people that have had serious health problems, including some deaths because of it. And then the bill would also ban natural kratom, which is just the leaves and what have you. And that's kind of where the bugaboo is on this in terms of getting something done. So the bill was scheduled to be debated in the House last week, and we could come to an agreement on it because everybody agrees we need to regulate the synthetic kratom, again, which is a leafy substance, but not everybody agrees we should regulate the natural, even though there are cases of death related to natural kratom. And we need to, regardless, just like vaping, we need to regulate it, put some age restrictions on it, what have you. But that's the fight right now. It is actually on the debate calendar in the House for Monday. I don't know if we're going to take it up or not, but that's the crux right now. Everybody agrees on this part, but they don't all agree on the natural part, and we'll wait and see where it goes. I'm likely to support both, banning the synthetic and natural. I'm still listening, but I'm likely to support both of those if it comes up for vote.
I know that wasn't a question, but Rick can't speak to it without me just giving a quick opinion there. I mean, essentially, we want a healthier Iowa in America, right? We ultimately, in the end, and people have the ability to make their own choices, but I've just been a firm believer that the products sold in head shops and maybe what you buy in a little ticker counter at a gas station might not be in the best health interest for an individual. Doesn't mean you can't do it or anything. But this kratom stuff, I mean, it's essentially gas station heroin, right? You know, to Rick's point there. I'm not saying that people who are able to manage it in a certain aspect haven't been able to, you know, find some benefit. I do not want to diminish that. I've talked to some people and they have some very real stories, but at the same time too, the abuse rate is so wide on this. And for a product that comes from Southeast Asia, where even a lot of countries in that area of the world have banned it from sales, it's like, I mean, this is homegrown out of their area, and it's, you know, not to besmirch any of those countries, but a few on the list, I was actually very surprised that they would even, based upon some other activities in there, that they would take the step to ban an organic product in their area for human consumption wise. It probably tells me it's not in the best interest. So, but we need to deal with that as well too. And it's not knocking these are products out there that are legal right now that people can go and purchase, I get it. But there's also a lot of public health risk too. And just like when people heard me before here at the Lincoln campus, right? We got a place across the street that says glass pipes out there, and signs say Kratom. Like, that's not to help people get on a virtuous path, right? It's being addiction to an underlying issue out there. I'm not sure it's the best interest for having easy access like that.
We have a couple of education-related questions. This one from Benjamin on House File 2508. Three required non-contact periods with students 4 times. In 2 of those weeks, November through March, are in the middle of the active fine arts seasons. How do we ensure activities are treated fairly and don't just follow an athletic schedule?
Yeah, well, first off, and Dan may not know much about that one, so I'll explain it for you. Not explain it for you, but that's a house issue. It has to do with non-contact periods. We have kids today, there's 2 separate areas here, the arts and band and speech and everything, and then the athletics part, and I'll get to that. That are run ragged all year. Parents know that, and they want to specialize in every sport. And baseball lasts all year, and basketball lasts all year, and kids don't get a break. So there are some, according to state regulations from our athletic union, some dead periods where you can't do that. Kids get a week off or whatever instead of moving from football to wrestling or football to basketball and basketball to whatever. So that's the intent of it, to establish some dead periods, including during the summer. The bill that was as introduced was expansive and would have been very detrimental to band and what have you. If the bill moves, the fine art part will be out. They won't be affected. It'll only be for contact physical sports, if you will. Having said that, I'm not sure it's going to move. We've had several discussions on it, and we haven't been able to figure out if it's the right thing to do. I think I'd have to look maybe on the calendar for debate on Monday. I'm not sure we're going to move it, but if we do, it'll only be for for sports as opposed to activities, so it wouldn't affect band, choir, or any speech or anything like that. If we move it, I'm not sure we will.
And this question from Carmen on House File 2171, how do you feel about repealing required vaccinations for K-12 students?
It's not going to move forward, and I don't think it should.
Short and sweet. And Cindy has a question on 2, I believe these are 2 library bills, House File 2324 and 2622. Are these bills progressing in the House? Are there companion bills in the Senate?
I guess I gotta say one thing, it might not be the best, in the military, there's something that's called hazardous duty or combat pay when you go out to certain zones. I have to just say that Brent might be earning some of that type of pay here too, because some of these bills I just don't know anything about. I do feel bad for just, anyway, sorry.
And listen, this is part, I'll answer that question. This is part of what happens, I particularly some of these questions coming from my friends on the other side of the aisle, when, this will sound mean, I'm not trying to be mean, is when you lose a lot of races. We have 67 Republicans, only 33 Democrats. And Josh will tell you, we get along very well. But when you get big majorities like that, you get some people that have some different ideas, and that's where some of these bills come from. And so they may come up, and a lot of them get killed, some of them don't. But it's a factor of, you probably get more moderate legislation or whatever, the numbers are closer, but we have very big majorities, and that means some people take swings at, like a felony for church service, which I don't agree with, but it's a fact of life right now. That the library bills haven't been able to move yet. There's been a lot of things, some things that I think were also ridiculous, saying you're going to imprison librarians and so on and so forth. We talked about it last week. We did move the bills, which indicates to me the votes weren't there, but it's still a live round. But we don't have a lot of debate planned this week, so those may simply die this week, but I can't guarantee that. I'll have trouble supporting anything in that area because the bill that we last talked about would turn over control of the library boards and so on, the city council, and I'm not inclined to give them, I'm not being mean, I'm not inclined to give any city council that type of control. So I don't think they'll move, but I'm not sure, and I will have significant reservations if we do take that up on the floor. I would prefer they stay where they're at.
To give a serious discussion there, most of those bills, I think darn near all of them are over in the House. I think there was a couple in the Senate. They never even cleared the first funnel. And if there's some consensus in the House as a way to proceed forward, then we'll certainly develop an opinion. But from a Senate standpoint, I'm not even sure there's an active library bill out there because they all either died the previous year or died first funnel.
I think Senator Dawson just said that all the crazy stuff comes from the House.
To be fair, Brent,
There's some.
here's just the reality. It's like, I remember, when first elected, I think the average tenure of service in the Senate was just around 8 years, right? And the House was substantially more. In the last few years, but now I think it's probably switched a little bit on the tenure there to the average age of all the senators, right? So some of these issues are getting brought up are things that some of us have dealt with before. There's probably some of the viewpoint in caucus that, we've already dealt with those issues. But there's people, it's a very new, young chamber. I'm not young age, but just young on years of service in the House. So a lot of these issues are issues that they just haven't gone through and had a larger discussion as a body. And that's just the process. It's always a pendulum swinging back and forth between chambers there on that. So that's why you see some fewer of these issues. I think we've dealt with some of these things back in 17, 18, 19, 20. I think there's a stat out there, like over half the House has been there less than 4 years, right, Brent, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just not anyone's crazy or anything like that. Just newer people. Just people that they're new up there, right? Like, hey, I want to bring this issue up there. And then sometimes it's hard to mentor people and say, hey, we dealt with this 6 years ago. Here's the history as to how we arrived at that discussion point. And then, as just like anything else in life, hopefully you mature a little bit, hopefully you get some more experience, and then finally, we'll just have fewer bills being filed over there. That's not the deal.
I totally agree. We have 17 people that are retiring this year. Just to go back to this, and I'm not making any comment here, but why people, I don't agree with this, so I just want to tell you that up front. Why people get cranked up is somebody posted this. So the Bondurant Public Library is having for sixth graders a book club for, I don't have a problem with this, this book is gay, and they're advertising it that way, and I don't have a problem with that, but a lot of people do, and that's where some of this stuff comes from. Sometimes they're trying to be inclusive, which I'm fine with, but that's where some of this gets generated, is all I'm telling you. So some people go way overboard in terms of saying, oh, this is terrible. And again, I think what we have works now, but that's what generates some of this stuff that people don't like because some things are seen to be right or wrong.
Well, I'm feeling a little guilty because that was just a bad joke that turned into an explanation for me. That was not what I intended.
There are issues up there. It's like we have to be respectful because, if you're a representative senator in some area of Iowa, and this could be like your number, like the issue that's got everyone on social media, the paper, and things like that. They want to bring this issue and try to solve it for their area, right? So it's just behoove us to try to listen to okay, is this an issue we can solve or just create more problems in the end? So, but everyone's trying to fight for their own area up there in some form or fashion. So.
Well, we are almost at time and got through the questions, and I know Senator Dawson, you need to leave for a family activity. So if there are any closing remarks or anything that we didn't address you'd like to end on?
No, I appreciate everyone coming out here today. I think we got darn near most of the topics. I think they're active up there for the most part. I know there was something there I need to talk about later on. I got hit up by someone on a bill that we sent over that might be decent there. But it's actually a really busy week, the last week of Capitol. Man, there was, last 2 weeks, we don't often have any bluffs up there, but I think every day there's groups of council bluffs up there with associations and everything, so it's really kind of neat. Don't see it too often, but it's been having a good clip up there. But thank you all for coming out and continue just to give us your feedback and everything, and we'll work and promise what we can and try to do some good things. So I do have a hard out here. I got families waiting for me to hop in the car and go do some other things.
So everybody gets yelling at me, great. But I would echo what Dan said, in terms of, a lot of people from Council Bluffs this year up there, that's great. I mean, I wish we had more of that. I mean, a lot of communities closer there all the time, and I appreciate it. The only thing I would say is, if you're gonna come up, try to contact beforehand, because the process, you send a note in, but I may be hiding in my office doing other work if we're not debating on the floor, and I'll come to my desk sometimes, somebody from Council Bluffs was there an hour and a half ago, but I didn't know, because I was doing some other work, I wasn't sitting at my desk. So if you're ever coming up, it's very easy to get my cell phone numbers listed, just text me, and we'll make time for you, and we did that several times this week. But if you know you're gonna come up, let me know, and we'll make sure we take some time and show you around and talk about wherever issues there. Right, Steve? He tried to get me last week when we were in caucus, I couldn't do that. But please let me know when you're there, and we'll make time to sit down and chat.
Well, I want to thank both of you for taking the time to be here. I know that you have surely busy schedules, especially during the week, and then get as much family time in as you can on the weekends, so I appreciate you taking the time out to be here. I realized that before I did not introduce myself, so I'm Crystal Perla, CEO of the Council Bluffs Chamber, and on behalf of the Chamber, I just want to thank all of you for being here. Our next legislative coffee will be March 28th. Have a good day.
I want my celly.